All right. Welcome back, Messaging Masters. In today's training, probably one of the most important life lessons and human interaction business lessons that you're ever going to get. Because if you know how to avoid this one type of person, know how to handle this one type of person, it's going to save you a lot of backstabbing. It's going to save you a lot of lost relationships, lost business, and just it could be like lost life as well, because this type of person is responsible for pretty much all of the biggest issues that you're ever going to see in life. And I say that because I've experienced them. So this is, and there's a difference between a passive aggressive versus this down here, if you remember this scale of emotions, this covert hostility. And I'm going to go into how to spot them, how to handle them, and how to ultimately understand them. Okay. Now let's zoom in here. So if you remember this scale of emotions, I'm not going to go into any of these other mental states except one, or except two. But if you haven't yet watched the scale of emotions training, I highly encourage you to go and watch that first before you go into this, because then you're going to understand the energy dial that I talk about. So we have the scale of emotions here, and the one that I've highlighted is one called covert hostility. It is exactly how it sounds. It is a hostility that is concealed. Okay. This is passive aggressive types, backhanded compliments, challenging you, things like this. You can kind of tell they're a type of person. Okay, is a mental state. It is essentially between fear and anger and antagonism. So they are angry, more so specifically, they're resentful, but they're afraid to express the resentment. You're probably right now you're thinking about people you know that are resentful, and they just are too afraid to confront you about it or the person they're resentful of. And so what this is, covert hostility, is this is when they've held it down so much they are now in a chronic state of passive aggressive. And you probably have seen people like this. They're sly, they're like likable, but they make you feel weird. There's a lot of people like that. And we're going to go into this here. So first thing I'm going to start with is passive aggressive behavior versus I'm sorry, we're going to go into the chronic covert hostility versus the defensive, which is like just a behavior. So they're just on the defense. There's covert hostility where this is like who they are. It has now been infected into their soul, versus somebody who's just being covert hostile because they have some sales defense language going on. All right, we're gonna separate these two, and then I'm gonna give you some ways that we can handle them, whether it is to totally disconnect from them or to handle whatever they're being passive aggressive about. So this is not so covert hostility is not a behavior that they pull out at certain circumstances, but has become their chronic state of consciousness. Okay, it's not their behavior. It's become more of a personality. So what is covert hostility? This is the effect of suppressed resentment. Okay, they are being hostile, but they are doing it nicely. Resentment has not been expressed due to fear of conflict. Okay, they have a fear of having conflict or a fight, so they hold it down, but they still want to get it out and they want it to be known. This is the state between fear and antagonism. Okay, how to spot covert hostility. One very, very great one way to understand it is somebody who makes you feel smaller. They have little remarks about how you look, or they may jab at your insecurities and then hide it with some kind of backhand compliment or a joke. So they'll say something like, "Hey, you gaining weight?" And or they'll be like, they'll say, "Hey, you're looking good, but are you gaining weight?" Like it's a that's not very good, but like it's you can just tell. It's like why'd they have to say that? They were like being nice, and then you don't know like whether to be like what was that about versus like well thank you, and they're doing that because they don't want you to get pissed, because then that's their biggest fear, that you get pissed and you call them out. So what they seek to introvert you. They'll say, "What's that on your face? What's in your teeth?" Like they're trying to push you into your head. Okay, if you've ever been on a sales call and you felt really in your head, think about who was the person you were talking to. Look at the person you were talking to. Were they wry? Were they asking questions that were hard to answer? They're doing that because that's their tone. That's their conscious state. How they look, you can see it in their face. Now, somebody who's been chronically in this state for a while, they'll almost have like a raw. It'll show up in their face. It's kind of like people that were chronically angry. Maybe they had a company for 10 years and they were just always frustrated. It's just like it's wrinkled in their face. With these, you can see like it's like this like smile, like they're like it's like a wry like they're like want to frown, but there's like this little bit of a like a Joker smile, and then it's like right, you can see it. You can see it's menacing. So you can kind of see it in their face. Now don't go around judging people because of how their face looks. Oh my god, that guy's a covert hostility. But kind of like take notice, because you're going to want to be good at spotting them, so you know who not to trust. Like they're just not people to be trusted. So how they talk, they will often attempt to insult while saying something nice in the same line. So for example, "This is awful, but I can see how you think it's good." Like, what? Like, this is awful, but I can see how you think it's good. It seems insincere. You can tell there's a back thought. There's something they're thinking about. Another thing to understand about them is they seem very punctual with commenting or messaging you. Like, let's say like they have an insult on everything that you do, but like it's almost like they're planning it, right? So they seem to have their attention fixed on you with no real intent, whether to buy, to do anything with you. It's just they're just there, and like it's just you, and it's strange. So like you'll kind of like you'll probably have somebody on your Facebook who's like constantly like saying backhanded things on your comments, but like every time you talk to them, they don't have a problem, they don't want to buy, and you're just like they don't want to have a conversation. There's just no there's it's not going anywhere, but they're constantly targeting you. You see this with haters are like similarly they're covert hostility because they're hiding behind the keyboard. They flaunt their success status and reasons why they're so great. They have a large ego, and they typically can't admit to needing help. So they're very egotistical. You notice this. You'll notice like you'll say something, maybe if you say something about them yourself, they'll try to one up you, right? Often they're just like this constant one upping. So these are little signs. Once you get good at spotting them though, like you'll be able to catch it like that, but they're very hard to spot. They blend in. So you got to be on it. You got to know, like you got to be in touch with how you feel about around them. Next, defensive. So this is the defensive types. So someone who is being passive aggressive as a defense mechanism is very different than someone who is in covert hostility. So how to spot a passive aggressive behavior. So the closer to the pain you get, as you inch closer to the pain of a prospect, the more defensive they're going to get. And then the passive aggressiveness is one of those defense mechanisms. So they throw hard to answer questions at you. Okay, so tell me, Mr. Expert, how would you handle this? Right? Because you're now venturing close to their pain point, and they're going to get defensive and they're going to try to test you, right? They get snarky. They evade questions. They try to throw you off. And it's all for defense around themselves. They're trying to defend themselves. It has nothing to do with you. So this one, for whatever reason, so this one has to do with you. Like they're going after you. This, but it's also, I mean, at the end of the day, they're defending themselves because they're scared. Okay. Same here, but this is more about like them just making sure that they are with the right person to get the result that they want. So the key to covert hostility and passive aggressive behavior, one word, is antagonism. What is the energy level that is above this energy level? It's antagonism. Okay. If you're here and they're here, you got them. If you're here and they're here, you're screwed. If you're here and they're here, you're screwed. This is why a big part of what I'm talking about here is you handling a lot of your own personal stuff, so you're not living down here. So this is why personal development and sales this is the reason why you have to develop yourself when you're selling, is because of this. I've had, when I was going through my personal development journey, and I still am, like I would ride up and down this tone scale, or this scale of consciousness here. And some days I'd be here closing everybody, or even higher. Some days I'd be down here and I would close nobody. And then I'd come up here. Sometimes I'd sit in here, and that would suck. Sometimes I'd sit here. That would suck. Here I would close people, but I was more reactively doing it, right? You want to be able to just decide. You want to go up and down. You want to be able to handle, like, be okay. What do I need to call up within me to be able to influence a specific type of person? So if you're talking to covert hostility, you've got to summon some antagonism. If you're talking to, if you're talking to grief, you've got to summon some fear. See? So as we walk through, as we handle a lot of these issues, covert hostility is the one that you need antagonism for. Now, the reason someone is passive aggressive is because they're too afraid to confront someone head on. So they combat the fear by hiding the resentment. Okay? This creates the behavior that they have. So their worst fear is for you to get pissed. That's their worst fear. So best practices. Direct communication. Hey man, I'm sensing you're upset with me. If that is the case, please be direct about it. Okay, notice. So imagine I'm being passive aggressive. Like, yeah, well, what are you gonna do? I do some passive aggressive shit. I'm like, hey, what's up? What's the issue? Is there something on your mind that you want to tell me? But I'm being stern. I'm not being like, hey, fuck you. It's not about them. It's hey, what's the issue? I'm not going after them. I'm going after their behavior. And what that's going to do is it's going to be like, they're going to straighten up. You notice passive aggressives melt to antagonism. Like it just disappears. So if you have somebody that's covert hostility, you got to be like, dude, you can't be nice. So that's the next thing, is don't be overly nice. You can be warm and you can care. You can have affinity for them, but don't be overly nice, because if they are being rude, call them out. Okay. Because that's showing you that you have some boundaries, but it's allowing them to clear the air on why they're that way. You'll notice people that have had like a really hard past, or they've had a lot of suppression in their life, or they've been abused, they're going to get some covert hostility. Or maybe they've had like, a rich family and like they had to constantly be proving themselves. Like it develops in different ways. So just notice that, and we got to handle that. So avoid dropping into fear. This is the zone where they will eat you alive. Okay. It's really hard because they will be constantly pushing you into your head, but you gotta get yourself up. Imagine notice any, like what's the movie, The Christmas Story? where there was like the really, really aggressive bully kid, but then the kid just was fed up, and he's just like, you know what, I'm going after him, and he just went after him, right? It's like all the fear went away, and he blew up. That's what we're trying to do. Is but we want to do it in a controlled way. Don't answer their questions. Okay, so if they ask you, so here's a classic question. Some classic questions are something about you and your looks. So they're going to be like, "Oh, hey, what's up? What made you want to wear that today?" And you go, "What is your intention behind asking that?" In a stern tone. What is your intention behind asking that? They're going to shut up because it's a bully question. It's not a has nothing to do with your offer. It has nothing to do with solving their problem. Or you could just be like, "Hey, last I checked, like from what I understand, man, is you want to solve this problem. What is the what is the way that how is the way that I'm dressed relevant to you solving that problem?" I had a lady on a sales call, like she was widowed. I believe she was widowed, and she was an older lady, very, very wealthy. And my camera angle was in a certain way, and we were getting really close to the pitch, and she was in a lot of pain, and she got really passive aggressive, and she was like, the way that I just hear the way that your camera looks, da 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 da, and I'm like, hey, what's more important to you right now? Is it solving this problem, or is it me having like the perfect camera angle? I'm like, okay, is there something on your mind that like are you pissed about something? Did I say something that pissed you off? No. No, it's okay. It was just something I noticed. Okay. Are we okay to move back to the conversation? You see the sternness, like what's going on? What Rand, like you got to call it out. You can't just be like, "Oh, well, the reason I did my camera this way is because of this fucking reason." And then you just start, and then she says, "Well, I don't like that." And then she just starts pushing you into your head because now she's winning. So now she has that her defense is working because you don't have the ability to reframe it. So you got to answer it with, what is your intention behind asking that? What are you getting at? Why are you asking me that question? Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't make sense. So when you do that, it's going to stop that. You're disarming them, and they realize that you're not the type of person that this shit works on. The next one, speak in absolutes. Yes or no, black and white, concrete language. They're looking for you to slip up in your language, and you want to be very particular with the words that you say. They're looking for a slip up so that they can jujitsu you, right? They're fighting. So when you say something kind of like this, it's kind of like that, they're gonna be like, "Well, what do you mean kind of like?" Like they have, like, you got to have some concrete. So it's this, it's that, right? Or just ignore them. If you have somebody who is in covert hostility, again, this is your choice if you want to work with them, but they are typically a dangerous person to involve in your business. I wouldn't hire them. I would close them because, like, unless like it's like a big deal and like I gotta, like, I want to protect against chargebacks, I would do that. But like they're not gonna have, like, I'm not gonna give them like personal information. They're not going to have the power. That what they do is they infect companies. And if you have somebody that's covert hostility, what they do is they go behind the CEO's back, they talk shit about the company, they do this stuff, and what happens is from within the organization, it'll fall apart. So if you've probably had a business partner or somebody this way, and if you have, notice this stuff. Warning. I'm going to give you this warning right now. Covert hostility is not a person who you want as a friend, is not somebody you want as a business partner. It's not as somebody who has a close contact or anyone who has the ability to harm you. Okay? If you give somebody the leverage over you and you don't know how to read them, like, and they are covert hostility, they are planning an attack. It is how they are. So their strategy is to get close with kindness before harming you. So it's undetectable. They are like a spy. You may have a few come to mind. Be cautious when dealing with this type of person. They can infect a company from the inside out. This is not somebody you hire as your CEO. This is not somebody you hire like as somebody that has access to your finances. Like, be wary. You can do business with them, but it's just, you don't want to like don't put yourself in a position that you can't get out of with them. All right. So giving you this warning, again, it is your choice if you want to work with them, or if you could even spot them, but you also have to be aware of this. So cool. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, very, very important stuff to know. And you're probably going to get them a lot in DMs, and here's how you handle them. So enjoy. Peace.